Okay, right. Let's get into this because I think this is a good example of. I try to be as unbiased as possible when I'm doing these things. Even though I do have a personal preference of things, which I guess is a bias. But for the most part, I play both sides. Yes, I mainly play killer, but it's not to say that I don't play survivor. And I think it's I think it's a bit of a weird kind of thing that tends to happen with DBD, or at least with the community of like, well, you're a killer main, therefore you never play survivor, and I don't think that's necessarily true. Likewise, the other way around. Like, I don't think a survivor never plays killer. Sure, they might play once or twice, but like, that's not saying that they don't play it. Well, anyway, I think that's like the first thing that DBD needs to get like itself together on is us v them. I think the whole us v them thing is just it's a bit childish. It's a bit, well, this is our stuff that you're changing, and obviously killer mains are gonna be thankful for this and blah 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 blah. Yeah, but also I don't want my killer queues going higher. I don't want I don't want everyone playing killer or everyone playing survivor or one role or the other, because then I get to have to wait. I don't want to wait. I'm lazy. I'm impatient, not lazy. Anyway, okay, developer update. Tours of Torment mid-chapter update is quickly approaching, so that can only mean one thing. It's time for another developer update. In this series of posts, we cover some of the biggest changes and additions making their way to the game. In this edition, we'll dive into various quality of life, accessibility improvements, as well as an extensive list of balance adjustments. Without further ado, let's kick things off with a highly requested feature. Blood web improvements. Who would have thought that too many blood points could ever be a problem? After our progression overhaul last year, many of you found yourself with a hefty amount of blood points. Very true. So many, in fact, that the finding of the time to spend them before your next match could be difficult. We've seen many suggestions for a way to improve the spending process, and rather than picking just one, we've implemented a few fan favorite ideas. We hope these new features will allow you to spend more time playing and less time shopping. It's a bit of an issue, especially after rank reset or just before a chapter or something. You end up with 4 million blood points, and I don't play as much off stream, so I come to stream and I'm like, I've got to spend blood points for 20 minutes at the beginning of the stream, and that's it. And I don't want to do that. So I'll sit there on max blood points. I think this was needed. I think this was needed years ago. Blood web chain. The first new addition is very simple. Select any node and the game will automatically wear anything that needed along the way. I think this gets overlooked a little bit, and I think people are mainly focusing on the other thing. Just to be like, I want that perk at the end, or I want that add-on, and it just fills it in, is very helpful. This will speed up it massively, because technically this is almost an automatic process. This allows you to buy multiple nodes with a single button press and ensures that you can get exactly what you want. But as always, the entity ever present and may consume one of these nodes before the chain can be completed, so plan wisely. I do kind of find that a little bit annoying, because like, we know how weird sometimes that the entity acts in the blood web. I don't really want it just taking random things and then having to press it again to get what you want, or not get what you want because for some reason it's blocked that. So I don't know. It is kind of, you can kind of force the entity to do it because it will tend to start on the other side, but some blood webs just aren't, they're just oddly shaped and it just sometimes doesn't work. But like it's a pretty good change. Like, oh, like let's take this one for example, this blood web. Let's say I want this diptych. It's just gonna go boop boop boop, easy, done. Say this was a perk instead, it would just go up there. It's quite simple. Obviously this is a smaller blood web, it's not the last ones. I like it. It's cool. It's a nice change. Automatic purchase. If you're looking to level up your character quickly and cheaply and don't care what you get, the new center node in the blood web is perfect for you. Selecting this node will automatically purchase items until the current blood web has been completed. This will prioritize perks and then the cheapest option available. This can also be used on partially completed blood webs, allowing you to grab anything you've got your eye on first. To ensure the players familiarize themselves with the content in a blood web, this button will only appear once the character has prestige for the first time. So new players aren't necessarily going to experience it. And again, something that I think gets overlooked is that you can be used on partially completed blood webs. So what you can do is say, oh, I want XYZ first, I want this item first, and then just fill out the rest because I don't really care. I think it's fine. I think from the video that they showed earlier, it could be faster. I understand that they don't want to make the process completely automatic and completely like no time invested, because it takes away part of the game. It takes away the learning of items, the knowledge. Like, yes, you have to prestige once, but prestiging once doesn't really take that much. It's like what, like 1 point something million blood points now. It prioritized the cheaper options, which does mean that potentially you will be running out of better quality things easier if you just use this option. But then sometimes, like for me personally, after I spend my blood points on a character, I might want to go into a character afterwards and be like, I need specific items. I'm going to search for those, or a specific map offering for a killer that I want to play. When I don't have maximum blood points, I think it's the maximum blood point thing that just really is just like, I don't want to spend that many. It's going to take too long. I think it could be sped up, or just have a autocomplete blood web button as well as this one. This I think would definitely help me. Beginning of a stream, I just press it. I don't have to think. I think it takes away that thought, which is good. Like, I don't really care what I get. I'm just let it do it. It's definitely easier. It's definitely easier. I think it could be sped up slightly, but as it is, I'm pretty happy with it. I mainly like, I mainly enjoy the blood web chain. I think that's a better option for certain things. And also another thing, press to buy. Ever wanted to watch the blood points fly from your pockets at an alarming rate? The default animation interaction only requires you to press the node to purchase it. So instead, at the moment, all you have to do is click on it, hold it down. What you can do on, I don't know if you could do it on console, but on PC, you basically click, hold it down, immediately start moving to the next node that you want, just to speed it up a bit. But sometimes, like, oh, I've accidentally let go, or I didn't quite click on it, you have to go back to it and stuff like that. There's like a lot of human error that can happen with these things. I think this is a good change. I think it was kind of needed anyway. This could be used in conjunction with other options mentioned above to further speed up the process. The interaction can be toggled if you would rather hold instead. No one's going to toggle it. You don't want to hold the button. So that's it for blood webs. I think all in all, it's a good change. I think it's been something that people have been requesting for years. And I'm honestly surprised that it took this long, especially when it isn't fully exactly what people wanted. It's kind of like a almost there option. But overall, it's fine. It's a good change. I think it's a healthy change. I think it's something we all wanted. Terror Radius is, which again, I think something that, for me personally, as soon as I played when I first played DBD Mobile, I saw this and I was like, why is this not in the actual game? Why is this not in the actual game? Like, this would make so much sense. Visual terror radiuses. The visual terror radius is an integral part of the game. Well, just the terror radius, not the visual one. Both warning survivors about the approaching killer and activating multiple perks. This can make it difficult for our deaf or hard of hearing players, since there is no visual representation of the terror radius strength, forcing them to use perks which work in the terror radius as an alternative. This, of course, is not ideal. We'd like everyone to be able to use the perks, as they'd not be forced to use one to have access to the core part of the game, which is one thing that got kind of changed when Spine Chill. So Spine Chill was used by a lot of people as essentially a visual radius that was helping them if they are deaf or if they're hard of hearing, or, you know, any accessibility issues that they might have. It was something that they needed. And I think there was a lot of backlash with Spine Chill being changed and that being taken away from them. And I think this is even better as a replacement. I think this probably should have come out when that initial issue came up. I think it's a good change. It's option. If you don't want it, you don't want it. If you want it, you want it. Accessibility is always good in video games. I think people that say, well, you know, it's a horror game, or maybe you just shouldn't play it, etc., are just idiots, and we shouldn't listen to them anyway. But I think from the other side of things, you can see, oh, does this give you any benefits? Is there any reason not to turn it on? Not really. I mean, you don't have to have it on. Personally, I think I would try it. I don't think I would keep it on all the time. But also, it adds a casual element to it. Like, okay, I just want to chill tonight and listen to music and play the game. Or if I'm playing with a friend that's streaming and they don't want to be in comms, then I can have their stream up and also mine, and listen to their comms without having to be like, is that their terror radius or my terror radius? I think there's a lot of good things for this. All in all, I think it was needed anyway for accessibility, but outside of that, I think it's a benefit which is pretty decent. I like it. When enabled in the accessibility options, a heart will appear on your survivor's chest when the killer's terror radius can be heard. Lullabies will also appear as a haze in their chest, which I don't know if necessarily is represented. This heart will become more vibrant and beat more intensely the closer the killer comes. If your character is ever off screen, an indicator will appear if the terror radius is heard, signaling that you should look at your character to see the current state of the terror radius visual feedback. So I'm assuming like in lockers and things like that. For those of you who made it, this heart will be also affected by the colorblind settings to ensure the adequate visibility. Great, amazing, love that. This option will not provide a competitive advantage compared to the usual the audio terror radius, and will respect any terror radius perks, add-ons, and powers. Yeah, like, I mean, I think that there are perks anyway that you could use if you would think that this would give you an advantage, that would probably give you more of an advantage anyway. And if this was in the game from the beginning, I don't think anyone would care. I don't think anyone would be like, oh, this is too strong. I think that's like a nonsensical question of being like, this will give you an advantage or not. Auto Haven Wreckers map updates. This is something I think was needed for a while. I think Auto Haven, most people would probably consider this like it's balanced in the way that it leans either survivor or killer. I think Blood Lodge, for example, I don't mind Blood Lodge. I do like Blood Lodge, but sometimes tiles can just spawn in such a way that either there's no pallets in the middle. Like, I've definitely played survivor games where I'm like, there's no pallets and no one has used them. But also equally, there's 20 pallets right in the middle and nowhere else. Like, it's very hit or miss. Which is why it could be a bit of a mixed bag. Exactly what I just said. Depending on how the map is generated, there could be plenty of safe pallets near the center or very few, creating either very safe areas or a dead zone. This area also has a very few line of sight blockers that can make it difficult for stealthy killers. Yes, it's very open. Sometimes there's a hill that spawns in the middle, but overall it's really, really open and most of the walls are really low. So if you're playing someone like Wraith or Myers or anything like that just needs that early game kind of like sneaky uppiness, you ain't gonna get it from this map. I think a lot of the issues that come from the game do tend to come from map balance. And then we just kind of have to like add on top of that anything else and it becomes a lot. I think there's a lot of pallets and window vaults and things like that that just lead so perfectly into other ones. I think that always needs to be addressed. I think Auto Haven does have some interesting maps for sure. And this is a good start. I think this is a good start. To remedy this, we're making significant layout changes to this map. The Blood Lodge itself will now appear closer to the center of the map. I don't necessarily always agree with that. I feel like that becomes a little bit samey when, oh, we have a map that has a structure. Okay, it's in the center. I like the ones that are just slightly different shaped, just to create like a bit of variety. I don't think we need every map to just have a center building regardless. Because then it just becomes, oh, Mother's Dwelling. You know, other maps that have center buildings. I can't think of any at the moment. I mean, I can't think of one because now Gas Heaven is being changed as well. So Gas Heaven features unique car piles which stretch several tires long. These special tires can get in the way of gameplay, however, making it difficult to traverse the map. Chasing a survivor around these walls of cars will also waste a lot of time if they start the chase with a significant lead. Going forward, these car piles will be broken up into smaller single tile chunks. These cars will also feature potential spawn locations for pallets, helping reduce the potential for dead zones to appear. There isn't an image of this, but there was an image. Oh, there we go. This image, I think, was on Twitter. So basically, the car piles that are stretched, basically the entire length of certain areas, are going to just have missing pieces in the middle, which I think was really, really necessary. So on one of the back walls, the one in the furthest, like, back right, looking away from the main building, normally there was a gen there, but there was a hook right at the end of one of those car piles. So if you hook someone and you can see someone at the other end, you can't chase them. If you chase them, they're going to run around, get the unhook for free, and then just escape. There's no mind gaming of something that big because you can just see them. It was too easy of a, hi, I'm just going to hide behind this wall. It just kind of reminded me of old Haddonfield hedges, where there's nothing you can really do with it. My only concern with this is, yes, they've added in like these holes into the cars, but they just put a pallet in it, which are pretty much guaranteed safe pallets. I don't think there's any mind games that are going to be happening here. They did say it's going to be a tile long, so I'll have to wait and see. But I don't think they should have just added pallets into the middle of these. I think that just kind of defeats the point, because if the first person doesn't use them, they now just have essentially the same thing that they just had, which is a really decent loop. I think the pallets were an issue, but we'll see. Depending on what they are, it says potential spawn locations, so they won't be there every game. But if they are there, then it gets tricky. It helps reduce potential for dead zones to appear. They're not really next to dead zones. Maybe the one that's over this side rather than here is going to be a dead zone, because sometimes, like, it depends if that gets used, especially around this side. But they also have the Gas Heaven gas station itself has been moved closer to the center of the map. Again, I don't necessarily want every map just to have a center building. So now both of these both have center buildings. I like the idea of having them have like a sprawling space in front of them and them just be at the side. I don't like the idea of just them always being in the center. It gets a little bit samey after a while. We've reviewed its spawning rules to prevent stronger combinations. It is a really good building. So if they move this forward, I worry that there's going to be a lot around it, which then can just feed into it very easily. Normally there's like these two cars here. Sometimes there's a pallet here. Sometimes there's a pallet between these two. There's also a pallet inside, another pallet inside. Depending if this door is broken or blocked or which way, whatever, there's a window vault. This window vault here is probably slightly better with this door blocked, because then all you do is just run around and just repeat and repeat. That being inside this, potentially having pallets behind it, to the side of it now, and this side of it, it could be really, really strong and annoying. I'm hoping that they adjust like what's going on inside as well. But other than that, I mean, I do think that the car changes was good. This change was good. I think Blood Lodge was fine to be changed. I think it's fine. I think it's okay. I definitely think survivors will gain a little bit of benefit from these two changes for the most part, as well as like the walls being like slightly higher there. My only issue is they said that the Bloodlust itself now appear close to the map, breaking up line of sight and separating so into these safer loops. Well, I think that, but like also the building itself is a loop. I think that's something to consider. And around the edge of the map, the other hand features several maze tiles, high walls with pallets or windows. So they basically just add better tiles around the outside. Line of sight blockers, while really beneficial to stealth killers, is also detrimental to like Huntress, for example. Does Huntress now become weaker on this map because they have a lot more high walls? She's already kind of slow. High wall loops are really annoying. But I mean, if you're a good Huntress, you're a good Huntress. It's interesting. It's interesting. Throughout the realm, some of these changes will spill over into remaining Auto Haven Wreckers maps, including new edge tiles, small tiles that run along the map boundaries, some of which include new gameplay, such as possible pallet spawn locations. That's fine. I mean, new tiles is good, I guess. Anything new and fresh to change the gameplay a little bit, change loops is nice. I enjoy those. Around the edges, I don't necessarily know if I agree too much, because I feel like the edge of the map is often just considered a dead zone anyway, which most people don't loop. And now we're adding in stronger tiles, potentially, to the outside of the map, which is normally further away from hooks and stuff. I think like the pro strat, or like the better strat would be, if I'm going down, if I just go towards the end of the map, I might be able to loop in for another 10, 15 seconds than I would normally be able to, and it's just going to just create that comp corner situation a little bit more. But I guess the game shouldn't necessarily be balanced around that anyway, but it's something to note that if you go against good survivors, you may be wasting more time around there. Okay, now comes to the big one. This is the big controversial one, which I'm going to preface already by saying that I have advocated for healing nerfs for ages. I've hated self-healing. I think self-healing was way too strong. I think people gain too much of a benefit from just doing everything themselves, especially with the addition of better healing buffs throughout the game. I mean, boss knowledge and things like that got buffed. I know obviously it doesn't matter about medkits, and I'll get into the medkits in a second. But like, there's so many extra ways to heal now, and so many good ways to heal that people don't do. It's interesting. I'm still on the fence about this because I do think that certain aspects of the game will become tedious, but I'll get into that in a second. There's no better way to avoid being put on a hook than healing your injuries. Even if the killer is relentless, an extra health state can buy your team more time to work on generators. Having easy access to quick and plentiful heals can cause problems, particularly for high-skilled survivors who can evade the killer for quite some time. An emergency medkit alone can heal the damage done after a long chase in roughly 10 seconds. This doesn't even begin to factor any sorts of perks and add-ons which can speed up healing even further and grant more heals from your medkit before your medkit is depleted. I think this is this is basically what I was talking about, is that you can chase a survivor for, let's say, 30 seconds around a tile. They make a mistake and you hit them. They then get to a killer shack, or they get to a main building, which then they can loop for a little bit longer. You realize that you've been chasing this person for, almost a minute because of, I don't know, maybe they've got overcome, maybe they've got dead hard. That's going to extend that chase a little bit longer. I need to drop that chase because those gens are going to start getting pumped out, and I need to go and defend them a little bit, go give them a kick, whatever, get survivors off them. This person's now healed up by the time I've walked over there. Everything that I've done in that minute has been completely undone in 10 seconds. I mean, I think we all saw the video from Crow, where it was like 7 to 8 seconds for like a decent medkit that requires like green add-ons, maybe yellow add-ons at best. That is an issue. There is a big issue there. And I think a lot of people would probably say like, well, you should just probably down them faster. Sometimes you can't. And I don't think that you should be able to down everyone really quickly, because I think then that's an issue with like, well, is your MMR a bit off, or, maybe you're just really, really good at the game, but like, I don't think the game should necessarily be balanced around the best of the best. It was very frustrating. It was incredibly frustrating to potentially not get someone because they just have a decent medkit, or have to focus on someone saying, I can't leave this person. They're really good at looping. I need to drop this chase. They're really decent. It's not beneficial for me. I need to control the game a bit more. Don't commit. I think that is something that people say a lot is, don't commit to chases if they're... Some people are better. Like, I can say that I've definitely been in chases with people that are just better than me. But now everything that I've done to them, or everything that we've done, has just been negated very quickly. It was an issue, and I think it's a little bit naive to say that healing wasn't an issue. But for killers, this means that any chase that doesn't end with a hook, even if they manage to damage the survivor, can be completely undone in a matter of seconds. Keeping survivors injured and switching targets are often wise decisions. And with this in mind, we had a few changes in store for healing to make this more practical. I do agree with this, like 100% with this. If you don't get them on a hook, they're going to negate everything that you just did. That 60 seconds is completely wasted because it's done significantly quicker. Now, this is this is where it gets interesting. First, healing will now take 24 seconds by default, which was 16 seconds. So it's 24 charges, used to be 16. This will make each hit more impactful, ensuring the survivors need to spend longer healing their wounds. Okay? It's 8 seconds longer. So 8 seconds that you could be spent doing something else, you're now spent doing healing. This doesn't include things that speed up healing, such as, desperate measures, or I'm trying to think of other healing boosting things. I mean, for medkits is always a bit iffy anyway, because not everything affects medkits. Like botany knowledge, for example, botany knowledge doesn't affect medkits as much, even at all. I can't actually remember the changes to botany knowledge. Someone will have to remind me. But I'm pretty sure botany knowledge doesn't work with medkits as well as just self-caring, which is why normally people take self-care plus botany knowledge. Secondly, we have rebalanced medkits across the board. All medkits will now have 24 charges by default, allowing 1 heal before they're depleted. The different rarities of medkits are as follows. So Camping Aid, which is the brown one, increased the altruistic healing speed by 20%, was 25%. First Aid Kit, which is the uncommon one, increased the altruistic healing speed by 25, was 35. Emergency Med Kit, which is the green one, increased the altruistic healing speed by 30, was 50, and it no longer increases the speed at which you heal yourself. The Ranger Med Kit, which is the purple one, increased the altruistic healing speed by 35%, was 50%. Increases skill check success zones by 10%, was 14. Great skill check zones by 10% was 15. So the great skill checks doesn't really matter. So basically a drastic nerf in healing other people with those, as well as the nerf on top of the 24 seconds. I think... Let me finish this off first. Lastly, we've done a pass on medkit add-ons, bringing those of which were overperforming in line with the rest. Add-ons, which add more charges to your medkit, has also been reviewed with new healing time in mind. Although it's now impossible for a medkit to fully heal a survivor more than twice in a match. It's impossible. So no longer will things affect charges. So a medkit will just heal you once, and that is it. So here's my concerns for this. My concerns mostly stem from the fact that on top of the increase in healing, you only get 1 charge of your medkit, and it looks like... I know it's probably too early to tell because we haven't got the PTB and we don't exactly know, but I think medkit add-ons being potentially reworked. It says we've done a pass on medkit, bringing those that are overperforming. I'm assuming overperforming ones were extra charges or healing speed ones. So I don't really remember the exact names of most of them. There's one that looks like a needle and thread. That one increases your healing speed by like 15%, I think it was. Gel dressing obviously needed to be changed because it was very strong and basically the one that was being used. I think the gauze as well, which was like adds 8 charges. Basically the charges ones are going to be reused to something else. I think we have to wait and see what this is. I think this could be really important to the overall healing change. Like this could potentially have really interesting effects. I'm hoping that they went more down the side of like killer add-on route with these and just made them exciting and like changed how healing worked and stuff like that. I personally think the self-healing is fine. I think self-healing should have taken longer anyway. I don't think that they should do it for altruistic healing. I think healing someone else should be the 16 seconds still. Because that's kind of what the point of the game was, is to find someone to heal you. Now it's just like, well, yes, I can find someone to heal me, but it just takes as long as healing myself. Like, I think overall, they've kind of gone away with, like, items have got a very limited use, and they shouldn't be relied on, which I do agree with. It kind of happened to toolboxes. Toolboxes, old Commodious with, like, charges and stuff like that, you could get, like, 3 gens done with a toolbox. They nerfed them, so they only last 20 seconds or whatever. Toolboxes are kind of whatever. People mainly use them for brand new parts and stuff. They're not really used as just, I'm going to do this generator with this toolbox. And I think they've done exactly the same with medkits. They've just made it so you can use it for a little bit and that's it. Which is fine. Don't get me wrong. I do think that it needed to be changed. I just don't think that they should have made it other people healing also 24 seconds. I think finding someone else should be rewarded because it takes time to get to them. I think it should be rewarded with the 16 seconds. Saying that, there are plenty of perks that also reduce healing significantly. Yes, not all the time. Things like Will Make It. I think Will Make It is very underused. I think that incredibly speeds up healing speed. When people play killer and they just come back to the hook, I think you could potentially get a heal up with Will Make It. Botany knowledge, desperate measures, autodidact, hello. Like, you could heal someone up in one skill check. Like, there are a lot of alternate ways to deal with this issue, and it could create its own meta of I'm going to take certain perks that I wouldn't normally take. Also taking things like inner heal, inner strength, whatever it used to be called. Do a totem, jump in a locker, off you go. Reassurance coming off the hook. A lot of these, I think, changes will be less effective as getting off the hook because I think more people will be likely to take other things. Solidarity is a good option, yeah, because, okay, I'm healing them, but I'm also healing me. We're doing we're speeding up the process. I think there are ways around it. I do think that the 24 seconds shouldn't be for altruistic healing. 24 seconds is base for yourself, sure. I think you should be punished for doing things yourself. I think the whole point of the game is trying to find survivors, trying to work with survivors. Is it going to mess up solo queue? Maybe. It's going to make it harder. But I don't remember exactly, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure, I'm 90% sure, that the majority of players in Dead by Daylight at least play in 2. I think 2-mans are the highest popularity of Dead by Daylight. Again, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure the last time they released those stats, that is true. Solo is, I think, the second most played, and then beyond that, I think like 3-mans and 4-mans are kind of low down. But the majority of people play at least in a 2. So solo queue, I think, is going to take a hit. But like, if everyone collectively is nerfed, people not more likely to then work on that thing that is nerfed. If everyone is now saying like solo queue is going to have the biggest issue, is that not going to change how people's mindsets are when they are playing solo queue? You're going to get randoms that are more likely to heal up because it takes so long because they can't do it themselves. I think it needs looking at. I think it needs checking. I do think it's a really, really big nerf. They could just tweak slightly. Ever so slightly. I do think the medkits needed changing though. I think overall, like at the current stage, you could take in a purple medkit with not even a purple medkit. Let's go a yellow medkit with a gel dressing, with increased speed, and you have like 3 heals in that one yellow item with a green add-on. I think that is too much. It's too excessive. It's too easy to heal yourself. You don't need teammates. You don't need to deal with anyone else because you could just do it all yourself. Again, we'll have to see. I think overall it went in the right direction, but there's definitely things that make this incredibly frustrating for certain players, aka solo players. I think solo players are going to take the biggest hit from this, even though we just had a DLC that kind of brought survivors up. A DLC. We just had the chapter that brought survivors up that play solo with like the UI and stuff like that. Giving people information was a really good change because it meant that they didn't need to communicate as much. Now we're just going back a step, which is frustrating, and I get that. And like my solo survivors, I only really play solo survivor, and my experience is going to be changed 100%. But I think we need to see what these add-ons are. And we have the PTB. The PTB, we've learned from Skull Merchant that they do listen and things do get changed based on our feedback. So our best thing that we can do now is go into the PTB when it comes out with these changes and really focus on what is making it frustrating, what is making it bad, what we could improve on. I think that's something that we need to do. Rather than saying, this is bad, it shouldn't be in the game, fix it. Constructive criticism is always going to be more beneficial than anything else. So this is the big one. That was the major, like, this is bad for the game. I think we have to see. I think a meta shift is good, but making the game boring or tedious is not good. So I'll have to see on that one. Perk updates. Moving on to perks. We have a bundle of tweaks for this update targeting both meta and non-meta options. Gearhead. First up, Gearhead currently reveals the aura of the next survivor who hit a great skill check after a survivor loses a health stake. These conditions require a bit of work and luck on the killer's part to get value out of it. Basically, you wouldn't get value out of it. With a new one, when a survivor loses a health stake, Gearhead activates for 30 seconds. While activated, any survivor who hits a good skill check with how their aura revealed for the killer for 8 seconds. Potentially 10 seconds with lethal. Meh. meh. I think there's better options. I feel like hitting someone and then seeing where people are, I guess could work on certain killers, but like overall, just you don't really need to. I think it's kind of pointless. It's like I don't know why Gearhead gets so many changes, and every time it changes, it just is like, that's fine. That's okay. I don't see it being used that much. It's nice that it's now 30 seconds, but it's whatever. I think there's better aura reading perks out there, to be honest. I think this might help some newer players. I don't think it's really going to help anything. Like for me, I kind of know where people are going to be. I know roughly what gens people are going to be on. And like you could just take Discordance and you're probably more likely to get more value out of Discordance than you are going to get from 8 seconds of this Gearhead. Overzealous. So Overzealous is the Hattie perk that if you cleanse a totem, you get gen speed. Oh, there we go. Overzealous grants a repair speed when cleansing a totem. I just said that. And a larger bonus when cleansing a hex totem. Little did we know the skirmishes that would cause between boon lovers out there. Moving forward, Overzealous will also activate when blessing a totem in addition to cleansing. We've also slightly increased the bonus to 8, 9, 10%, so 2% higher. Yeah, I think this was fine. I think this was needed. It's kind of annoying, especially when things are requiring to use totems and then boons came out and it was like, well, now we have to find out if we want to use boons or not. And if someone has got boons and I've just gone around getting rid of them all because I either wanted overzealous or inner healing or anything like that, I've now just ruined their build and I don't know that. So I think this was a fine change. I mean, 10%, that's cool. I think my potential issue with this is that this is way more consistent because you can just bless a totem over and over again. Like, if you just put it in a place where you know the killer's going to kick it, just rebooting it without removing it, it's just a constant 10%. Like, there's no real downside of this. It does go when you're hit, so that could be enough. Yeah, it's fine. I think it's cool. I don't know, might see some changes, although I doubt it because boons are taking a hit. So unless you're taking exponential or dark theory, you're not really going to see it go off too much, to be honest. Scourge, Pain Resonance. I think this is another important one. This perk has gradually found its way back into the meta. I don't think it really left the meta, to be honest. I think Pain Resonance has always been up there. It got slightly changed, and then I'm pretty sure it was still one of the most used perk. And I think the only reason it's not, or potentially it wasn't in the meta, is because Eruption was so prominent. And Eruption plus Scourge Hook, everyone would take the Eruption and then not take something else. I don't know. I think it's always been there. To address this, we've given Scourge Hook Pain Resonance a slight rework. We focus on the word slight because I don't think this is slight. The perk starts with 4 tokens. The first time each survivor is hooked on a Scourge Hook, the generator with the most progress will explode and lose progress. That's the same as normal. We've also reduced the difference between different tiers of this perk to 11, 13, 15%. So my issue is that it now has 4 tokens, but you can only use 1 token per survivor. So it's actually, it's reverse barbecue. While also being a Scourge Hook. While also nerfing it. They've now made it a 4-time only 15%, which makes it what? Like 65%? So it's only 65% regression at max. I think if it's fine. I think they could just remove the Scourge Hook at this point. Remove the Scourge Hook just so it's just hooks. It's similar to Grim Embrace. I mean, I don't think this is going to get used anymore. This is no way this is going to get used. And I think this is an issue with Scourge Hooks, not with Pain Resonance. I think Scourge Hooks were really frustrating because the current killer meta for bad killers is I need to tunnel and camp someone and get them out the game as fast as possible. If you're losing a game, if you are struggling with killer, killing a survivor is the best option you have. And if you're on a Scourge Hook, that makes it really hard because you're just trading onto that Scourge Hook constantly. What they needed to do, and this is mentioned before by other content creators, is make Scourge Hooks rotating. So say you've hooked someone on a Scourge Hook. Okay, now that Scourge Hook moves somewhere else. or anytime you hook a survivor, the hooks swap around and different scourge hooks move different places constantly. It's constantly changing, so you have to constantly pay attention to where they're going. And I think that would have solved a lot of solutions. It would have meant that scourge hooks aren't terrible if they're all over one side of the map. I definitely have RPD where all of mine are outside on like one side of the map, and it's like, I'm never going to use those. They're completely pointless. I think making them rotate would be a lot better. I think this is useless now. I do think that you're not going to see pain resonance, which is a good thing for survivors. I think the current meta for killer has been pretty much gen slow for however long. I think gen slow was needed. I do think that generators got a little bit too quick and too easy to do. So I think the meta of we just need to kick gens came because of that. And now we're just removing those things. And a little, I mean, basically, previous chapter we lost Eruption. I say we because I do play killer a lot, but we as in general. So Eruption got nerfed ever so slightly. I think the frustration from Eruption got nerfed, and I also do think that just completely changed people's minds. Of whenever a perk gets changed significantly, people just drop it, regardless if they think it's good or not. They just drop it. And then later on, they'll figure out that, okay, maybe it didn't get nerfed that bad. So I do think that sometimes they do go a little bit too hard on certain perks, and this was one of them. But it's less gen slow. It's less gen removal. The gen I've been working on for the last 60 seconds has now just regressed completely. So it's good. It removes frustration. I hated playing against Pain Resonance, but I would use it because it was a rewarding perk to use. Like, oh, I got a down, I've poked someone, I deal with the regression, potentially get an alert that someone is working on a gen or close to. But yeah, so that's kind of dead in the water. My favorite perk, and a topic of hot discussion for the last however many times this has been changed, Dead Hard. Though Dead Hard initially fell from grace after the 6.1 update, again, I don't agree with this. I think statistic-wise, probably it dropped off because people just said, oh, Dead Hard's not used, let's not use it anymore. And then realized, oh no, it's actually just fine still. It steadily climbed back up to being one of those prominent survivor perks. Dead Hard already required some precision to use, and further reducing the invulnerability window would make it far too unreliable and frustrating. I do agree. Therefore, Dead Hard has also received a slight rework. Dead Hard will activate after safely unhooking a survivor. When activated, press the active ability button while injured running to gain an endurance status effect for 0.5 seconds, then become exhausted. Dead Hard will deactivate when it is successfully protected for user from damage. This will put a damper on how often Dead Hard can be used, keeping it as a power reward for survivor who had earned it. So, here are my thoughts on this, and this may be controversial. I think that this perk is still going to be used pretty much consistently. Yeah, sure, some people may drop it off, but I think it will do exactly what it did last time, where Dead Hard fell off because it had been changed and people aren't willing to immediately look at something and figure out what they need to be doing, like, with it, and then just immediately come back into meta again once they realize people are still using it. I think the key word that people are really, really overlooking of this whole change is Dead Hard will deactivate when it successfully protects the user from damage. If the killer waits it out and misses, or you use it and the killer doesn't hit you because they're trying to not give you the endurance, it's going to stay active. You can use it again. Like, how many times are you saying to killers, wait it out, just wait it out? Okay, they're going to wait it out, but then you're not going to get the hit. So, if anything, it's better for killers to hit you when you're using it, because then it removes it. You're going to give survivors exactly what they want, is to be able to get Dead Hard off more consistently, because survivors don't want you to have it still. Like, I think that's just the mindset that's going to be. Like, I'm going to make sure that, okay, I don't want them to have Dead Hard. I'm going to make sure I hit them. Yeah, I might lose this chase now, or this chase might get extended, but now they don't have a Dead Hard. It's going to do exactly what it does now of forcing survivors to change their mind and be like, well, I can't chase you because now you've just gone further away into a like essentially a third hit. I think that Dead Hard has been an issue in the game, or not an issue in the game. Dead Hard has pretty much been the survivor exhaustion perk, the meta, for as long as I've been playing, and I've been playing since 2018. Don't think there has ever been a time where Dead Hard has not been used consistently, and I think that is an issue. I think we can all agree that stale metas or perks that just get used way too much shouldn't always be there. And I really just wish that we just got a different effect. I really wish Dead Hard just got converted into a completely new perk. Maybe still as strong, but just something that is different. I think I'm just bored of it regardless of the iteration that it comes out as. Like, barbecue chili, for example. I think barbecue chili, again, was another perk that was just consistently used. Whether or not you think it was good, or whether or not you think it was OP, or whatever, it was just boring just to be like, well, killers will just take that regardless. I'm just over it. I really am just over it. So another thing that I do see pop up quite often is, so what about tunneling? So tunneling is pretty commonplace nowadays. And people are saying, well, I'm just going to get tunneled harder now. I personally think that Off the Record is a slightly better version of Dead Hard anyway, in terms of being tunneled. I think Off the Record is something that people should probably take if they're worried that they're going to get tunneled harder because they don't have Dead Hard. Maybe that's controversial. Maybe that's wrong. But honestly, that's my opinion. I think smart killers would wait out the borrow time effect anyway. So waiting out and then being like, oh, they actually have Off the Record. I also think Overcome is underused. I think Overcome plus Off the Record coming off the hook is probably going to give you a pretty decent chance. But again, that is my opinion. I might be wrong. I hate being tunneled. Like, don't get me wrong. I play Killer pretty consistently. I play Killer pretty much all the time. But that's not to say I don't play Survivor. And that's not to say I don't get frustrated with being tunneled and cammed in every other game. But I do think there are better perks that can counter that than just Dead Hard. I'm just bored of Dead Hard. I'm just genuinely bored of Dead Hard. And I'm hoping that this maybe just dampers it slightly, that we don't see it in every game or whatever. But I think we can all agree that Dead Hard is consistently used a lot. A lot. Probably too much. And I think survivors maybe rely on that sometimes. People that are really good with Dead Hard rely on Dead Hard to be like, okay, well, I can make a mistake, but then I can counter that. I'm hoping it changes, but as it is, I do think this is going to be used probably by the majority of good survivors. I don't think good survivors are going to change this. I think they're going to keep it the same. It doesn't mean people are going to rush that Dead Hard, that save though. It will force survivors to save, which means that you might not be left on hook. Who knows? So yeah, I think it's interesting. I think we have to wait and see to use it and how it plays out. But overall, I do think it was warranted. I do think potentially removing Dead Hard from meta is a good thing. Call It Brain. Call It Brain quickly rose in popularity following the meta shakeup last year, granting a large increase to the regression rate of generators. It's not uncommon for a generator fully regress once the survivor is chased away. To tone down its power, we have reduced the additional regression speed to 125%, a maximum. I'm only ever going to read out these maximums because, let's be honest, if you're using these two, you're probably not really going to be reading patch notes. So it was 200%. It's now 125. I do think the Call the Brain is probably not going to be used after this. It might be in conjunction with Overcharge still, but I do think this was a hefty nerf to this. From 200% to 125 is big. It is big. Like 75% reduction. It's weaker than tier 1 of the old one. I don't see it being used. I do think it's very helpful to see when people are back on the gen, because I do think this is essentially a slightly better gearhead if you're kicking gens consistently. This does nerf 3 gens. The current meta, I think, for a lot of killers is 3-genning while using Call of Brine, Overcharge, Eruption, whatever. I do think this nerfs that completely. I don't see it being used as much. I don't know why you would pick it up. I think you're probably better off using Pop, honestly. Or just Overcharge. I think Overcharge is a better Call of Brine now. Mainly because of that skill check, but yeah, I don't see this. I don't see it being used as much anymore. Overcharge. Similar to Call of Brine, Overcharge saw a similar rise in power over the last year. This perk also increases the regression rate of generators pretty substantially. To bring it in line with other perks, we reduced the maximum regression speed to 130%, was 200%. This would make it take longer for the regression rate to become beneficial. So at the time, we've increased the starting regression speed to 85%, was 75%. So it's a higher beginning, worse later. Again, this is a big nerf as well. So 130% was 200%. That means in total, if you were to use Overcharge and Call of Brine, you're only getting 50% more than what just Call of Brine was. Than old Call of Brine, 50% more. I think Overcharge might still be used only because the skill check, but they did nerf the skill check slightly, which is kind of negligible. I mean, 1% difference isn't going to make or break it. I think Overcharge might still be used. I think Call of Brine is pretty much dead. Using them both together is probably just a waste of two spots. But saying this, I think now every single gen regression perk has been nerfed, and I use gen regression rather than gen slow because these do technically regress the gen, whereas perks like Thanatophobia and Dying Light and stuff like that, they're gen slow. I think every single gen regression perk has been hit in the last few chapters, and I think we need to pay attention to this because we're shifting from this gen defense meta to potentially a healing meta, which is essentially the same thing, but maybe it would just overall slow down the game slightly. And I think that seems to be a concern for a lot of people, me included, is that games in general seem like they're going too fast. Like, if a killer makes a few mistakes at the beginning of the game and doesn't get a down straight away or doesn't pressure any gens because they're in a chase or whatever, potentially 3 gens can get done at the beginning of the game. Very quickly. So I feel like taking away this is going to just either force killers that seem to be struggling into camping and tunneling more, or it's going to turn into a hit and run kind of gameplay, which definitely was a meta before. I mean, we've seen like the decline of killers such as like Hag and Wraith and things like that that were really good at that because healing in general was better, and also defending gens was better. So I don't know. I don't know what the current way of seeing things are, but I kind of I like it because it changes things. It means, okay, well, if I can't use these because these are bad, what other builds can I use? As a killer, what else can I use that's going to give me as much benefit? Maybe I should go for more chasing builds. Maybe I should take brutal strength more, enduring, things like that. Things that will help me in chase because the gens, I can't defend them as well. I'm really curious. I'm really interested in to see what's happening. I think it's exciting. I think as much as we're being nerfed and changed, I think we have to look on the other side of things are changing and things are going to be different. Things are going to feel different. Other perks are going to be used. It's going to feel fresher. It might not feel as fun, but it's definitely going to feel fresh. And we also have an anniversary chapter to come up. I'll go over this last Circle of Healing and then I'll talk about the anniversary chapter in a second. So Circle of Healing. This perk has become a jack of all trades of healing perks. Not only does it allow you and your fellow survivors to heal without a medkit, but it also increases the speed of healing across the board. Going forward, Boon Circle of Healing will no longer allow survivors to heal without a medkit. Instead, it will provide 40, 45, 50% healing speed bonus to healing others. This bonus will not apply to healing done with a medkit. Additionally, the auras of injured survivors within the boon range within the boon range, yeah, will be revealed to all other survivors. So, here's my opinions on this. I hated Circle of Healing. I think Circle of Healing removed an aspect from the game, which almost seems like they're trying to bring back in, of needing someone else to heal you. I think Circle of Healing provided too much value in certain situations to allow it to not only heal yourself, heal others, heal yourself fast. It provided too many outs for survivors without needing to do anything. Oh, I've been hit, I'm just going to run back to the boon. Oh, I've been unhooked, I'm just going to run back to the boon, you go get on a gen. It speeds up the game. It speeds up the game. It means more people are doing things that they want to be doing, while that person that's healing can just do their own thing. I think this first sentence is very interesting. Circle of Healing will no longer allow survivors to heal without a medkit. Can it be depleted? Can the medkit be depleted and you can still heal yourself? Does it give you the ability to heal yourself with a medkit, even if it's depleted? If that's the case, I don't see it really having any issues. Because it just means that you just take a medkit and you take Circle of Healing and you can heal yourself with that medkit. I'm assuming it doesn't, but like, I don't think Dead by Daylight, I don't think Behavior are necessarily known for their clear and precise wording when it comes to perks. To me, this is very vague, but to me this sounds like if you have a medkit, regardless if it's got charges or not, you can heal yourself. I don't know. We'll see. But it will provide the healing speed to other healers. So essentially this is what I personally think just healing someone else without the boon should be. They could lower the healing of healing someone else anyway and just keep this as 50% for them. So it's just a faster heal. I do say the auras of injured survivors within the boon range will be revealed to all other survivors. So this is global aura. It's not just if you're both in there. You can see if someone is in the aura of that boon. More often than not, boons are in a place where either it's really safe for survivors, so they'll put it far away from gens, or they'll put it next to the gen that they're probably working on, or like as kind of like a map marker of saying, I'm at the boon, go to the boon, whatever. I think the aura reading is very beneficial. If you're in a chase, you could be chasing in the aura and you can see where the survivor is. I'm curious. I didn't like Circle of Healing. I think it was too easy. I think it gave certain situations too easy of an out. Let's say you 3-gened. Not because you were trying, but because the survivors naturally 3-gen themselves. They stick a boon over the other side of the map. You're now stuck in that game. You hit a survivor, they run over to the heal, they run over to the boon, you have to go defend your gens. At that point, it's probably a loss for the killer to do anything, and they just have to accept defeat and just let the survivors do it because they can't counter this. Or go over to the boon, lose the gen pressure, and lose the game. Like, it was annoying. I also think that on certain maps it became too strong. Something like the game or Midwich or anything with multi-stories. I think Circle of Healing was you stick it upstairs in a corner and you can heal up below it. It was just too frustrating for a killer to get to. I think Shattered Hope being non-base kit as well. If you want to get rid of boons, take Shattered Hope. Okay, they didn't take any boons this time. I now have a perk that's completely useless. I think the aura visibility is also good. Yes, I agree. I also think I'm kind of just bored of Circle of Healing. Again, it's just one of those perks where I'm like, there's a Circle of Healing in the game. Okay. I do think boons in general are weak. I think the only other one that I would ever consider using is Dark Theory, Facilities. Like, that's it. Exponential's not very good, and I can't even remember the name of the other one. Shadow Step. I guess Shadow Step is good. It's useful, but you might as well just take Distortion. But I think overall boons need to be either, like, the other boons need to be buffed, because I do think that after this, I don't necessarily see boons being used anymore. That being said, I don't suppose people aren't going to use it. I do think the healing else, like coming off the hook and both being next to a boon is good. Healing someone else faster is good. I'm glad it's not going to be used in, like, again. I feel like Circle of Healing was used in, like, pretty much every other game. At least one person had Circle of Healing. If multiple people had Circle of Healing as well, even more stressful. Like, I'm sitting there trying to kick all these things. And I know what is said is, I view it this way. 16 seconds for a survivor not working on a gen is good. 16 seconds putting a boon down for everyone else to heal up consistently removes them having to heal someone. It removes an extra person in the step of healing up. And that was what was frustrating to me. I think this is a fine change. I think this is a good change. I'm glad they're nerfing these gen slow as well. I think these gen slows were really annoying, frustrating to deal with. Dead Hard as well. I think Dead Hard needed to be changed. I have played this game for many years, and it has always been the bane of my existence because it is in every single other game. You know, I feel like a perk that is used with 4 players on the team using it, there's 9 pages of perks. There's 9 pages of survivor perks. And consistently we're seeing the same perk used. There is something wrong with it. There is something inherently wrong with that along the lines. And I think that needs to be changed. I think it needs to be addressed. And I think another thing, before we get into the killer updates, another thing that I do see people saying is that they should buff other perks instead. They should, rather than nerfing perks, buff the perks that don't get used. And I do agree with that. I do agree that there are certain perks that just never get used and should be buffed. We have 8 pages of perks for killer. When have you last seen Hangman's Trick? When have you last seen Zanshin Tactics? When have you, like, any of those perks that just never get used because they have really no use? I do think they should get buffed, but I don't think they should get buffed in line with perks that are already really used, because again, you're not going to use them still, because these perks are just better. The issue with having so many perks in the game is you have to nerf and buff. Otherwise, there's always just going to be the best of the best. This is the best situation, use it, do it, good. You can't buff others without nerfing some first. And that does bring me to the anniversary chapter. I think this whole meta shift is interesting just before anniversary, because anniversary is when major changes come to the game, big updates come to the game. And I think this is all building up to that they've changed so many kind of core mechanics when it comes to healing that maybe down the line they're going to change something else. And I think that's something to look forward to, potentially with generators. I think the generator game is going to be changed slightly. This is my prediction, is that generators are going to be changed in some way to either survivors are more efficient if they're good at doing them, make them harder to do but quicker. Something along the line needs to be changed with generators. Because I personally don't think that they necessarily require much thought input. Holding down a button and pressing a spacebar every now and again, it's too simple. Make them slightly more difficult, but speed up the process, and I think that would be a really cool idea. Killer updates. Starting with this mid-chapter, we'd like to include a bunch of small tweaks to various killers in each update. These will be smaller scale than the reworks we've done in the past, focusing more on number tweaks than new features or significant changes. Larger reworks are still planned, but we want to show you some love to our growing roster along the way. Hillbilly, start your chainsaws, don't worry from them overheating. We've adjusted the Hillbilly's overheat mechanic to be much more forgiving. I don't really play Billy that much, but I don't necessarily have any issue with his overheating unless I'm like actively trying to overheat. But that could be something for Billy mains out there. The amount of heat generated from both starting to rev and continuing to rev your chainsaw has been dramatically reduced, making the overheat mechanic almost a non-factor when used in loops and over short distances, much akin to how he used to play. Just as before, heat will now begin to dissipate as soon as the chainsaw sprint ends, meaning the most of the heat generated for a short sprint will already be gone by the time your chainsaw is ready for another attack. Okay, that's cool. I like that. The amount of heat generated while chainsaw sprinting, on the other hand, has been increased slightly. Though the changes above will help to counteract this, longer sprints will cause your chainsaw to overheat quicker, so be careful not to let it overheat in an empty corner of the map. Okay, I mean, that's good changes, I see. I don't see any downside of that. Last but not least, we've toned down Doom Engravings and Death Engraving add-ons. These add-ons will provide less movement speed than before and increase heat generation further. Okay, so this is the big thing that people are being annoyed with, is that they're nerfing Billy by nerfing his add-ons. Um, I personally feel like Billy is a really hard character to play, which is why you don't really see him, because he's difficult, and if you're not very good with him, you're going to not do even... You're going to do even worse than you would do if you're just not very good at the killer. I mean, again, I don't really play him, so I don't really have an opinion on this, but I feel like good Billies probably don't even need the add-ons, honestly. I don't think this necessary. I guess this is fun, and they're removing a fun aspect, but like, whenever I've been against a Billy and I'm like, they're so good, they ain't taking any perks or add-ons. I don't know why. Something about you Billy mains. Yeah, I can see the frustration. I can see the frustration of changing a character that necessarily didn't need changes. Leave him alone. Let him be where he is. Maybe give some other add-ons. I don't know. Buff up some other ones or something. The pig. The John's medical file add-on has increased the pig's crouch movement speed. This add-on has been performing well, so we've decided to nerf the pig. Increase the add-on's movement speed bonus to 10%. What? Oh, huh? Wait, this confused me. I was like, wait, this is a buff, not a nerf. Okay, so she can now crouch faster. Okay, cool. I mean, I don't know. There's not much to say about that. Great. I mean, I don't necessarily think people would use it still. Maybe 10%? Is that a 4% difference? Is that enough to just not take any other perk that, I don't know, helps kill survivors? The Oni, 2 of Oni's add-ons, Blackened Toenail and Bloody Sash, allow him to move faster while absorbing blood orbs, losing less ground in the process. These add-ons weren't performing as well as we'd like, so we've given them some slight improvements. This will now increase movement speed while absorbing by 0.4 and 0.7 respectively. Was 0.3 and 0.6, so 0.2 faster if you're using both of these. Again, not enough to really know. I mean, I feel like for the most part, if you're in chase with a survivor, you're not sitting there just absorbing over and over again. Normally with Oni, there's a big pool of blood that you're just absorbing and getting your power instantly anyway. I mean, it's not really going to change much. It's fine. I like these little tweaks. I think they're useful, but it's cool, I guess. Freddy, the Nightmares, Sheep Block, and Unicorn Block add-ons affect blindness and survivors who trigger it at Dreamsnet or Palette. These add-ons weren't doing so well, so we've increased the duration of blindness and status effects to either down by 30 seconds. I don't really know what they were. And from reading that, it says they're increasing it by 30 seconds. I wish they'd tell me what it was, the total amount. But okay. I feel like blindness necessarily isn't the best survivor debuff. I mean, unless you're taking like windows, it's not really going to affect you too much. It's fine. Executioner Scarlet Egg add-on increase. I feel like, okay, I think this one is completely whatever, because Executioner has by far the worst add-ons for any killer. Most of them don't do anything. Most of them are pointless. You only really use the range add-ons with him. I think he needed an overhaul for his add-ons. Completely overhaul with his add-ons. I mean, I think this proves like one of the downsides. This doesn't provide much value since Kill Instinct only updates its position periodically. Yeah, if they're infected by Rites of Judgment, you're going to know where they are because you literally can see them. It just doesn't make any sense. Just rework his add-ons. That's all I need. This is a little step, but I think most of them just need changing completely. They're all tied to the Rites of Judgment, which is like the trail that you leave on the floor. But like, okay, but what killer is going to stand there for his Eerie add-on, for example? His Eerie add-on gives him like stealth when he's in his Rites of Judgment. What do you want him to do? Just stand there? Just take Insidious if you want to do that. It's just pointless. Terrible. Rework add-ons, please. The Clown. The Redhead's Pinky Finger add-on can be incredibly powerful, allowing the Clown to instantly down the survivor after hitting them directly a bottle. Previously turned down the add-ons by reducing the maximum amounts of bottles the Clown had to hold, but it seems the downside was not enough to bring it in line with the ultra rare add-ons. Going forward, this add-on will reduce the maximum held bottle by 3 was 2. Okay. I mean, I don't really see Pinky Finger that often. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist and it's not strong, but like it doesn't really do anything. I also think because he has a speed bottle and his like stinky bottle, he kind of needs more of them to be able to get to where he needs to go. And this is, I guess, fine. I mean, reducing frustration from that, and they're kind of hard to hit, but like, whatever. The Huntress got hers changed. Yes, hers is ranged, and he has to at least M1 them afterwards, but I mean, it's a nerf. It's a nerf to a killer that I don't really see any of, so I don't really have an opinion of it. Maybe a clown main might, but I feel like for the most part anyway, if you're missing 3 bottles, you probably know you probably maybe should just play normal clown. Bright light interactions removal. When Dead by Daylight first released, only 3 killers were in the game. It was unreasonable to bring a toolbox just in case you faced off against a trapper, or a flashlight to bring... Oh, it wasn't unreasonable, sorry. Or a flashlight to burn the Wraith when it was a 1 in 3 chance. But as killer roster grow, these mechanics have started to feel out of place. The majority of killers do not have any interaction with survivor items, leading to one that do feel fairly unfairly punished by something beyond their control. In the past, we removed the ability to sabotage the trapper's bear traps to alleviate the issue. In this update, we're removing the flashlight interaction with various killers' powers. Since some of these actions aren't very well known, we'll run through them. The Wraith, we removed the ability to burn the Wraith out of his cloak. This was also done in the process. I think they could have tweaked this slightly. I think removing the ability to burn him out of his cloak completely was needed. I do think it was really frustrating because you could bully a Wraith very easily with this. I mean, not even bully, because like the flashlights would run out of power eventually, but like for him to be removed and then stunned on top of that, as well as being like, it was just a lot. I think what they could do is make it so if he's in the process of coming out of stealth, you can still blind him with it and you could still burn him that way. Because I think that creates a counterplay of like, I need to time this right for when he's doing this to counter it. And I think that's fine. It is what it is. The nurse, you never really got this off. Similar to the Wraith, the nurse could be burned while blinking. I feel like most people didn't know that anyway. This didn't come up very often since it was very risky and difficult to pull off, but it's also being removed. A buff to nerf, but again, like, you never really had an issue with this. I mean, I don't think I can categorically say that I have ever been burnt as a nurse, or I've tried to burn nurses and I don't know. The artist. Survivors could shine a flashlight at crows to scare them away. This also didn't come into play very often since crows could easily be shooed away without using flashlight charges. Yes, I agree, but I also do think that placing down a crow and then flashlighting it to run past it was a good play. I like playing the artist. I do think it was weird sometimes. Because there's already ways to counter it. While shooing, you could also jump into a locker. Yes, in a chase, you're not going to be able to do that, but like, I think overall, it's fine. Again, it's not really going to do anything. It removes frustration. The Hag, arguably the most impactful. Flashlights have long been the sole counter to Hag's phantasm traps. Not only could they reveal the aura of nearby traps, but shining a flashlight on the trap would destroy it. Removing a flashlight effect from the Hag's power is a little trickier since it would leave survivors with no option but to set off the trap and risk the Hag teleporting to this. This is not true. This is not true. It would still leave the survivors an option. You can crouch by the traps and not set them off. What it should say is, this would leave survivors in chase with no option but to set off the trap and risk the Hag teleporting to it. You can just crouch by the add-on, the traps, to not set them off. Which is confusing to me that they said that. To ensure this doesn't make the Hag too oppressive, we're adding the ability to wipe away a phantasm trap. In order to do so, survivors would need to spot the trap, crouch over it to avoid setting it off, and then perform a several second long action to clear it. So Demogorgon, essentially. While this will allow all survivors to clear traps, it will be much more difficult and time-consuming to do so. Additionally, this prevents the survivor with the flashlight from destroying Hag traps mid-chase. I agree with the prevention from destroying the traps mid-chase. My issue is that someone's just going to go around and just scrub away all your traps. Permanently as well. Like, again, flashlights do have charges. They do have charges, but being able to remove them, depending on, it says several seconds. We don't know exactly how long the timer is. Several is a term used for something over the, I think it might be over the amount of 4. So anything longer than 4 seconds is several seconds. So I don't know. If it's really quick, it might be annoying. If it's long, sure. But it does mean that she's not going to camp as much. I don't necessarily... I don't think she needed this change. I think the flashlights being removed was fine. You can crouch by them. You can get rid of them. The hag isn't necessarily oppressive and strong. She's good at camping without camping. Like, no one says, oh my god, that hag is camping. Well, she puts her trap down by the hook and she teleports to the hook every single time. But you can crouch by them. There is a counter anyway. So I don't know if this was needed. I think giving them the extra action was a lot. We'll have to test it, but I don't know. Deep Rift and Beyond. Late last year, a deeper level of the Rift was revealed, allowing players who had already reached level 70 to go above and beyond and continue progressing to an alternate version of the outfit, starting at the Tools of Torment mid-chapter update. This Deep Rift will feature unique visuals to better differentiate the bonus Deep Rift tiers from regular Rift. As for tomes, you may notice a new trend emerging, with the most recent tomes lore is expanding in the following tome. It's no coincidence. This is something we'll be doing for all new original chapters moving forward. This will allow us to expand further on the most recently introduced characters' lore in a more natural and exciting way. Licensed chapters, meanwhile, will be maybe an exception to this. While we would love to expand upon their stories, as they've done in the past with the likes of Ghostface and Bill, licensed characters come from franchises with their own stories to tell. Therefore, the tomes followed licensed chapters may feature existing original chapters instead. And if you've been waiting to learn more for your favorite characters from years past, don't worry, they won't be forgotten. Older characters will still be featured throughout the new tomes as minor characters. With that, we've reached the end of this month's developer update. So let's quickly talk about this. I think a lot of frustration comes from this as well, because people that have associated themselves with certain characters, that really enjoy those characters, that haven't had a tome, and now potentially being forgotten about. I think that from a lot of frustration from me personally, it seems to be coming from an oversight of certain words that they're saying, and I guess a lack of a clear explanation of things. It doesn't mean that they're being forgotten. Minor characters still exist in certain times, which is fine. The biggest thing is licensed chapters, meanwhile, may be an exception to this. This is true. The only people that have ever got one is Ghostface and Bill from a licensed perspective. Therefore, the tomes following licensed chapters may feature original chapters instead. This is where you're going to see those characters. We're going to see these characters during these. Oh, Pig and Tap also got one. Yeah, that's true. So let's say Anniversary chapter comes out. We know that Anniversary is probably going to have a big franchise tied in with it, so a licensed chapter. Well, who's going to be after that? I don't know. Maybe Jeff. It's not saying that there's never going to ever be one. It's just going to say, if we have a license, chances are we're going to see older characters get their tome instead. It's not like it's never going to happen. And also, we have to remember that there is also a tome before that, before the new killer comes out. So, I don't know. I think that this does not say what I think we all think it says. I think this does mean that we are going to see chapters of the characters, original characters instead. It doesn't mean that we're never going to see them. Older characters will still be featured as well in minor things. We're still going to have lore about them, and you're still going to see something about them. It's just not going to be the entire tome's idea. Not everyone reads the lore, and I totally understand that, and it's frustrating for characters that have been overlooked, because I definitely think there have been, especially with some newer characters that have been overlooked. Ones that have got really, really good lore based on really in-depth DBD lore, aka Elodie Felix, I think have really important lore. I don't remember, someone may be able to correct me. Did Hattie and Dredge get one? I feel like Hattie and Dredge didn't get one. I think theirs was the one before this started happening. But I don't know. With that, we've reached the end of the developer update. So I think overall, this was a really good patch. I think there's definitely some tweaks that need to be happened during PTB, and that's what PTB is there for. So if you do have concerns for how this is going to play out, if you can, get on the PTB, test it out, test how it feels, play games, give feedback, because that's how these things are going to get fixed. Reading stuff just off a board like this is very difficult to see how it plays in game. It's never going to be the same as we think it's going to be. We're often wrong about things. I'm often wrong about things being like, oh, no one's going to use that. And then it comes out and I'm like, actually, no, this is really good. We should use this more often. This killer is really strong. I mean, remember how everyone was like, certain killers are really weak, and now they've become so strong because we didn't really give them a good test in PTB because we read the patch notes and it didn't look initially good. There's so many like nuanced changes that it's just going to be difficult. I think healing is going to be the main focus of this. I think this is going to make or break certain aspects of the game and really make certain players not enjoy it so much. So this needs to be carefully looked at. I do think that healing someone else being 16 seconds, the regular heal speed is fine. I think that needs to be reverted. Other than that, I think medkits need to be tweaked. I'm excited for the add-on pass. Add-on pass is really, really important because this could completely change what we feel so far about this. We don't know what any of these are. They have not mentioned anything. It's just add-ons which add more charges have been reviewed with new healing time. What does that mean? What does that mean? We don't know. Perk updates, I think, are all good. I genuinely do not see a bad thing. Maybe Circle of Healing being not as used as much. And Dead Hard, I do think is going to be used still. But overall, I think it's going to be a wait and see. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, I'm hoping that they change things. We'll see what happens in the PTB. They probably will tweak things. I don't see why they wouldn't. They're pretty easy number changes to do as well. There's not like big changes like they had to do with what's their face, Adriana. So I think this could potentially be healthy in the long run, but difficult at the beginning. That's my opinion. And again, that's my opinion. It doesn't mean it's true, and I could be completely wrong, and I would absolutely be okay with that. I think that's something that we need to pay attention to, as like, we can have these feelings for things, but we could be wrong about them. Just remember that. And also be nice to people, because I've seen on Twitter so many people just like shouting at everyone, being like, well, you're a killer main, you do this, you're a survivor main, oh my god, entitled, killer mains are being, you know, favored by DPD, whatever. Who cares? It's a game. We're all there to just play and enjoy. And when there's frustrating aspects of the game, of course we're going to be more like happy when they've been changed, or equally we're going to be upset when things that we enjoy and we do are being changed. It's natural. It's going to happen. Just be nice. Just be nice to people. And that's it, basically. There's nothing else. We're done. Now, thoughts and opinions. Give me everything. I want to know everything.